Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. With me this week is Kelly Burke, CEO of Emerald Acres and COO of KIF. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks, David, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be on the show with you.
The pleasure is all mine, I assure you. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. Kelly, I always like to start with a little bit of background, and I'm always curious to learn, what was it that got you into the cannabis industry?
So about 7 years ago, I started seeing my now husband, and he was involved in the cannabis space out in California. At that time, I was a registered nurse, so I've done pretty much a full 180 as far as taking a career shift. And so back in 2017, 2018, I decided my significant other is in the cannabis industry, so I might as well get a job in the space as well. So I found a medical clinic that was issuing cannabis medical cards. This was before it was recreational in Illinois. And I came on. I ended up becoming the GM over 3 locations. And then at some point, I was doing quite a lot of work, and I figured my significant other is building a business. He needs an ops person, and I'm practically being an operations person for these clinics. So why don't I go ahead and help him out, and kind of jumped in. I am a founder, like a co-founder of KIF, and then sort of the rest is history. But that's early on. And I'll give a little bit of background on him. So he had a hemp clothing company called Ganja Wear that he had going in 1999. Oh, wow. And so he introduced me to a book called The Emperor Wears No Clothes. And then I sort of became enthralled in the whole fact that this plant that has been prohibited for so long has so many uses and seems to just provide an enormous amount of benefits to the community, and became slightly obsessed with the fact that not that many people knew about it, and it could be so impactful in a number of business sectors. So it's got me all excited,
What was it like making the transition from registered nurse into cannabis operations manager?
Well, I did have that period of about a year where I sort of transitioned over from being a nurse in a cannabis clinic. So I was working with doctors, made a lot of contacts and connections in the space, but I was also sitting in a lot of the meetings with my now husband, Jarrett, and sort of working through things as the sort of industry was evolving. So at that time, it was before it was even recreational in the state. And most of the things that were happening to create the legal landscape, to create sort of the best practices, they weren't founded at that time. Everybody was sort of figuring it out. And so it was a really natural transition for me, because I feel like I was a part of the grassroots collection of people that were making moves to establish the industry. And I knew from an early point in time that, unlike in the medical industry where I was, at the sort of the bottom of the totem pole, that in this space, I found a psychological reward out of ultimately having really intelligent people that I looked up to and really admired turning to me and thinking of me as sort of the expert providing them information. And I feel like it was almost like an addictive experience for me to feel valued and have these psychological rewards that I was adding value to people that I admired. And so it was quick to sort of fall into this, fall into the momentum.
Did you receive any blowback from your former colleagues?
I didn't really turn back to look that direction and ask. I jumped in, and then, with him being this, involved in a cannabis company out in California and having so much history, me meeting his whole network, it 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 didn't really matter to me.
Well, no, that's fair. But I do think, I mean, really, I guess there is an addictive quality to it, but there's really just something to be said about doing what you love.
Yeah. People certainly could tell how passionate I was about it. And I think many of those that had an opinion knew that I probably had a greater grasp on, like, why, all the reasons why I was moving in this direction. And then I think people quickly just figured out that this was like my entire world at some point. And I've been full-time entrepreneurship with me, which means basically like 100 hours a week, listening to podcasts like yours and others, nonstop, sitting in policy meetings and trying to be at the leading edge of what's happening in this like total, like, I consider it turbulent waters where the tide is constantly changing, from one day to the next. Something that you knew to be true yesterday, something may have happened and today it's changed, or in 3 other states it changed and it's likely to change here soon. So prepare. So I feel like, at some point people kind of started realizing that I was sitting in all this stuff, right?
Have you always found yourself to be an entrepreneur, or was that something that you discovered when you made the switch as well? Because I mean, you say you put in about 100 hours a week. That seems low to me based on everything you got going on right now.
Yeah, it's probably low, but it's like, because our team has sort of become almost like my little family, and I'm so involved with all these different groups and the networking, like the professional networking. I think, like, once you start, getting truly invested in all of these different organizations, groups, going to these meetings, you start creating a new circle, and that circle happens to be following similar paths or contributing paths. So yeah, I mean.
Could you tell me a little bit about Emerald Acres as well as Kif Cure? Just, what you guys do and your mission.
Sure. So I'll start with Kif Cure because Emerald Acres was sort of born out of that. So with Kif Cure, we started it in the West Loop of Chicago, and quickly we started closing on deals to build out extraction labs in the hemp industry, and cannabis space as well. So we started as almost like a consulting group. And then once we had enough projects underway, we ended up in more of the brokerage scene. So moving material, which means we quickly needed to have a warehouse space. And early on, it was challenging to find groups that would lease to a hemp company. And so for that reason, we were lucky enough to stumble upon the property that you visited, which is now called Emerald Acres, to basically act as our headquarters, which it still is today. And then when we moved in here, we were going to start up like a CBD coffee shop and sort of like roll out this whole experience here to try to incorporate what we knew what was coming, which is like the bioplastic straws and cutlery and things like that. And the food products, so like hemp hearts and hemp microgreens and those sorts of elements. And we wanted to create it in like an environment where the community could come in and have it be not necessarily, with like big pot leaves all over the walls and neon colors, that it's a little bit more of a family-friendly environment to sort of help with the normalization of what industrial hemp is and what this could mean for, a number of aspects: food, shelter, clothing, bioplastics, the list goes on. Now batteries, things like that. So when we first moved into this space, The dreamy idea of doing all of those things was a little far off because there wasn't the infrastructure in place, but we knew that we wanted to play a big role in the farm community. My husband has been born and raised in Maple Park, Illinois, where we're located here. So when we purchased this property and we happen to be on the very verge of Maple Park, he knows basically all of the farmers around here in the farm community. He was a quarterback at Caneland and went to Aurora University and kind of like never left this area. And so has deep roots and ties to the agricultural community here. So when we moved into here and we were pioneering, how do we provide resources to the labs that we build out? Well, they need raw materials and they need inputs. So we started selling seeds and working with the farm community, which has now become the core of our mission. How do we help farmers monetize industrial hemp as a large-scale rotation crop? So that's sort of like the core mission for KIFCure. And then as we started expanding and doing workshops, selling seeds and genetics over the course of the past many years, we've had, in the first few years, I haven't counted in a while, but we serviced in the first few years that we were operational at this location, like 120 farmers or so. At this point, it's surely expanded, but the market has also been in ebbs and flows. So, we've had the opportunity to really interact and work with a lot of farmers, and then showcase different things here in the surrounding land. So what happened is at some point we outgrew this location as well. And then we bought a much larger 160-acre property down the road, which is where we're building out the Northern Illinois Hemp Hub. And I can get into that in just a bit. But to kind of jump more into now that we're transitioning KIFCure transitioning KIFCure over to the Northern Illinois Hemp Hub property, which is about 7 minutes from here. We're leveraging this as a way to sort of really engage the community and become a pillar in the community to really do what we had set out to originally. But we've found that for this space, private events, and for just our busy lifestyles, having an open to the public space where it's more of like a restaurant didn't fit with our career goals as much as a private events venue. So we were lucky enough to actually get married in this space and purchase it after a 2-year lease to own. And so we purchased it in 2021, and Jared and I got married in 2021 here in the back. And at our wedding, everyone said, you should do this. We said, we're not sure if we should buy this property, whatever. And people are like, you should use this as a space to interact with the community. So now we're doing farmers markets to try to support the farmers in the community that are not just growing industrial hemp, but also, a lot of those farmers are growing tomatoes and peppers and have bigger gardens. So giving them an outlet and being a resource for them. And then we're having farm to table like dinner parties and events where we're inviting the community to ticketed events where we'll incorporate celebrity chefs, workshops, things like that, as well as corporate events. We did have the honor of doing a few cannabis sponsored events here. And so we've had a few of the operators here in Illinois rent the space, do product launches. You came to the event that we had with Growcast, and that I think is really where I think we're separated and kind of stand apart from other groups. We have, the sprawling, more like agricultural footprint, and then to be able to walk off of this area, which is a little bit more family friendly, and then to be able to step into about 70 acres of industrial hemp. That's just right next door. We farm all this land around us. It gives people the opportunity to see what else could be done. And we're going to be growing all of this for grain this year. So this will all be food for protein. And then last year, we did a big workshop and harvest open house where it was all fiber. The fiber that we grew on this plot next to us last year actually went into building the first permitted hempcrete building in the state of Illinois, which I know I did the little demonstration and we did like the flame thing when you were here as well. And we'll be having another workshop this summer to actually finish up the hempcrete building, do the finishing. We'll be showing a bunch of natural building materials that can go and be used for the different sides. So like plaster, we'll have a few different and have like windows. So it'll be more of a demonstration building that people could see to learn about hempcrete and building with hemp and the different materials used in the building and construction space. I don't want to get too far off topic. I'll let you jump back into another question.
Well, no. So, full disclosure, I wasn't able to make the event. Producer Eric made the event with a couple of other friends, and they, based on everything they said about the Growcast event, I will not miss the next one because it sounded so incredible. And when producer Eric came back, he gave me your card, and he's like, "If you talk to anyone, you have to talk to her."
Oh, thank you.
But
you look so familiar. I've definitely seen you at events.
Well, that is very possible. It's also possible that producer Eric and I look very similar. Okay. No, it's like when I go to events with my family, when he's at events with my family, they think he's my brother. And it's just like, no, it's the other two. It's, it's okay. It's a family affair. Yeah, I mean, he's my brother from another mother. Are you strictly involved on the hemp side of the business?
No, we also have a cannabis company. We are licensed in the state of Illinois with an infusion license, but we've partnered with a craft grower, and we do have a whole pre-roll line that's launched in dispensaries now. We just launched on Valentine's Day. We are also launched in Michigan and South Dakota. Oh
my goodness. How do you keep up with everything?
It's a good question. I don't know. I have an awesome team. We've built this team over the past 7 years. So, over the course of time, I've been really blessed to surround myself with some people that are just awesome. And because we have the multiple business entities, because we have to, because of the legal structure of hemp and cannabis and everything else we're doing, and holding the real estate separate and protecting the liquor license and the food permit from the hemp stuff. Nobody wants to touch each other. Mm-hmm. So it's just led us to having multiple businesses. And so we've had to hire some really incredible team leaders to sort of spearhead each of the businesses. And it's been truly a blessing. Like over the course of time, you kind of whittle down and you find who's your core crew. And now I can say, most of our team has been with us for numerous years at this point for the different businesses. And they're all catching their wind. They're all different ages. Like I kind of treat them like they're my children. So, I kind of say, I have a 7-year-old, I have a 14-year-old, I have a 3-year-old, I've got these. Yeah.
No, I understand that. And it sounds like you really do foster a positive environment to work. I wanted to focus on the pre-roll line. What was it like to launch the pre-roll line? And was there anything different from outside of your hemp business that you found to be particularly challenging?
So the brand that we've launched, as far as the pre-roll line, we are the first of its kind. So this is Spliff Society, and Spliff Society is the first botanical pre-roll line in the state of Illinois. And basically, this is called our flight box.
Okay.
And here we basically have all different cones, and each cone is cocoa, goji berry, mango, blueberry, lotus flower, and rose petal. Sorry, I was running.
No, you're good.
I'm like panting. And so what we've done is in each state, we've partnered with a craft grower or a cultivator, and we've paired different flower that complements the cone. So with these cones, there's no artificial flavors or colors. So you're not going to like smoke a blueberry and think, wow, this whole thing tastes like a blueberry pie. There's no fake terpenes. There's no any of that. It's actually the pulp and the skin of the blueberry.
Wow. So
And this is,
when you were looking for cultivation partners, how did you decide who to work with and, kind of fit what you were looking for when it came to launching the new Spliff Society line?
So in different states other than Illinois, we've chosen to move forward with our partners. So in South Dakota, we built a lab for Dakota Herb, who is the largest grower in South Dakota. Kifkir still gets contracted to build out labs. And then in the cannabis space, it's under Rezen, Rezen. And so we build out labs. And then in Michigan, one of our key consulting extraction partners, his name's Nate, and Elite Extraction in Michigan is the partnership that we have in Michigan. So we kind of start with our partners and then dovetail out into some of the stakeholders in our businesses have interests in other states. And so kind of creating a network and alliances with different groups that play nicely in the sandbox. And we're just looking for good partners that understand what it takes to scale a brand, just want to be successful and don't want to put unnecessary roadblocks in the way. I think those are key things. We work with a lot of groups. We do a lot of custom contracts. Every operation is different. So I feel like we vet a lot because there's lots of states that would be fun and interesting. Evaluating the market opportunity and the partnership is really the key focus for that.
Mm-hmm. How are they manufactured? Are they made by hand? Do you have equipment?
Yeah, so the pre-rolls are packed. I think there's different equipment in each state. The Futurola one is the one we're using in Illinois. I'm not sure of which, because the cones come assembled.
Right.
So it's just packing in the cones.
Yeah.
And we provide the cones and the packaging, and then work to collaborate on, I call it like a wine and cheese pairing, what notes in the certain flower bring out the characteristics that are in the wraps. And all of them have a truly different experience because they're different textures, right? So, the goji berry is almost like a gooey sort of texture, where the blueberry is a lot more paper-like. And then the rose petal is obviously velvety and rosy. I've seen other products on the market that have been in rose petal before in other states. Mm-hmm. So I guess it depends on the particular product, and working with groups that have lots of terpenes is more important to us than potency. Mm-hmm. So we're going for this really holistic approach and then making it a whole experience where the customer gets the unboxing experience, and if you buy one of each, then they come in this box and you can show up to a party and be like, well, bam.
Oh yeah, no, there's quite the reveal.
Yeah.
Do you have a personal favorite?
It's like asking me my favorite flavor of ice cream. I don't know. I really like the taste of the cocoa a lot. And I feel like it's selected less because it looks like it could be a regular product because it's brown. So it looks like it could be a blunt paper or whatever. And I find that the mango gets picked up. The mango and the blueberry gets picked up a lot. I like the mango and the blueberry too, just because people look at you and say, what is that? And ask questions. And there's so many papers that are on the market that have artificial dyes and colors and terpenes that are bad, and you don't actually know what you're truly inhaling. And is it, yellow number 5, and are you inhaling that into your lungs, and what is that doing? Where this is actually fruit and totally organic and natural. So I like them all for different reasons, but
okay.
Yeah.
Where are you sourcing the paper from?
So that's proprietary. I probably won't say that
Okay.
on a podcast.
No,
But we
that's
do
fair.
have a couple manufacturers. It's taken a while to dial all this in.
No, I understand. I mean, I gotta ask.
Yeah.
So are you looking to expand into other states?
We are, but we're rolling out carefully state by state. There's a lot that goes into rolling out in a new state, and each state has its own sort of environment. So first and foremost, finding a solid partner, establishing the partnership terms would be step one. And we're open-minded. We want to scale. Eventually, I think we'll end up in most states, I would imagine. But with each state rolling out has a lot of marketing investment. There's a lot of client and user education that's required, because I think seeing the vibrant colors may send a different message initially that I had just sort of mentioned. So it will take a few awesome pool parties with a bunch of our team and explaining it and going through that to really like have it go viral in a state. So there's definitely like time and experience metrics that are required to like truly, I think, kick off, as well as marketing initiatives, getting exposure, things like this. So
Is that the typical brainstorming session, a pool party?
a pool party is high on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds a little bit more desirable than, a rented office space with a whiteboard.
Yeah, I think pool parties are definitely better for mango joints.
Fair. A little bit better ventilation.
Yeah.
Since you launched on Valentine's Day, what have you learned? What has been the market response?
It's been great. We've been picking up new dispensaries all the time. It's been a learning curve as far as getting shelf space in an area for which clients are going to be able to see your product, because it's new. And in Illinois specifically, like only 40% of the products in a retail store, if it's from like an MSO, has to be from other operators. And so product placement is really important for a new product. And so there is definitely about to be a big rollout, like bud tender incentive programs and dispensary incentive programs to basically educate them and create like a competition and allow for them to provide that information to their clients. I would say that's probably one of the biggest things. If you're coming to market in Illinois, we're really blessed to have such a different product. And it's challenging with something that's not at all the same with what theirs are. For groups that are coming to market, like a craft grower with a flower that's a new flower in a state that has lots of pre-roll joints in paper, I could only imagine what they're going through when we have such a diverse product. There's nothing like what we have on the market, and we're experiencing challenges with getting shelf space in prime areas and getting so I would say that's probably the biggest thing, but it's been well received. Like, we're picking up new dispensaries every day. And it's only a matter of time. Like I said, we just need this weather to turn. We launched on Valentine's Day, which is in February. So we need a few good pool parties. We need clients and customers to go into the store and say, "Hey, do you guys have that Spliff Society stuff? I saw that video that went viral and I want to get me some of those." And I think the rest will happen from there.
What does a single pre-roll retail for?
So they are 16 and 18. So the blueberry, and that's in Illinois. They're less expensive in Michigan. Each state has their own, thing going on.
Oh yeah, that's the nicest that's ever been put.
So, each state, we have our own price points. I'm just talking about Illinois. But for the blueberry, mango, goji berry, and cocoa, those are all 16. And then the rose and lotus are 18. They're all 1 gram.
I know that you launched on Valentine's Day. I'm just kind of curious, how was your Earth Day?
It was great, actually. I don't know about how Sales were on Earth Day, but my Earth Day was great. I'm involved in a lot of the sustainability stuff. I don't lead this company. My partner Andrew does. So he's more day to day, out promoting this brand. I go to a lot of conferences and I'm networking, but I'm primarily spearheading things in the industrial hemp space.
No, that was my poor attempt at transitioning back to the hemp side of the conversation was the Earth Day. So transitioning to the hemp side of the business,
Sure.
what opportunities do you find in the hemp industry or industrial hemp and those that remain untapped, if not all?
Sure. Well, I can say with the utmost confidence that Kifcure is definitely providing a lot of opportunity for new companies in the space. Earlier, I mentioned that we are building out something called the Northern Illinois Hemp Hub. So this hub is a green manufacturing campus where we are bringing on partners up and down the industrial hemp supply chain to all sort of be in one centralized like geographical location, for which we will have like a bioplastic manufacturer, a biochar. We're having a biochar reactor where we'll be feeding it that. We'll have an anaerobic digester. The whole facility will be green energy ran. We're kicking it off this summer, so I expect us to we'll be breaking ground this year. And we have the decortication partner selected. There's an advanced materials partner that we're talking to. So basically, bringing together different manufacturers up and down the supply chain. We are not ourselves trying to be vertical. Kifcure is focusing just on the food systems innovation. So basically, for grain production, as well as being the agricultural provider. So we contract the farmers in the area. We have tons of seeds, literally, because we're trying to plant thousands of acres. And so this location is also where those farmers would basically drop it off like a traditional co-op. Like, we provide the seeds, we provide farm services, we teach farmers how to do this. And then those growers and producers then can bring it back and collect a check and be on their merry way in the same way they would in any other with any other type of commodity, corn, beans, etc. So we have been working really hard to provide the opportunity and training necessary for people to enter into this space. And so we are constantly looking for new partnerships to sort of kick off the industry in Illinois. At this point, I believe based on the USDA's numbers, we were about 98% of all the hemp grown in the state of Illinois, at least the registered acreage. So we're providing workshops, resources. We want to build the community and help provide resources to businesses that are trying to get their foot in the door or figure out where to begin. Because at this location, we will have raw materials, truck scales, equipment, things that would be necessary to truly do this at scale.
Where is it located specifically, and what other partners or types of partners are you looking for?
Sure. It's 7 minutes down the road from Emerald Acres facility. So it's also in Maple Park, Illinois. The property is a mixed use property. So we actually have a bar on site. We have some residential and a large horse boarding facility, honestly.
Oh, wow.
So sort of got all that stuff going on too. And that's on one segment because it is a big property. It's 160 acres. So there's enough room for multiple things to be going on at the same time. As far as partnerships that we're bringing to the table, like I mentioned, the decortication, bioplastic, advanced materials, prefabricated wall systems, so wall panels and building and construction materials, advanced materials, like graphene oxide and things like that.
I was just wondering if there were any any specific target markets, that might be in the CEN listenership, that might be a fit. That's what I was curious, like, packaging, anything like that.
Yeah, definitely all these groups are going to need packaging. The type of packaging for the products might be different than like standard packaging. Yeah. But yeah, I guess packaging, anything that's ancillary to what we're doing, equipment. I think this is obviously you guys have a big foothold in the equipment space. And so equipment innovation is a big piece of what we're doing. I'm working on a few things with the universities pertaining to making some equipment adjustments, suggestions for harvesting of large scale row crops. So we are using some techniques used in other countries, bringing in some things to make some adjustments to equipment. But basically everything that we're doing at this point is pretty much an innovation as far as like, at a broad scale, everything is pretty new. So the amount of opportunity that is available is untapped. And if people have ideas, I urge them to come, reach out, see if there's a place. And if they have a business that is looking for a home, we have, we're looking for tenants to fill these slots. And we have the ability to scale to add in a lot more tenants. We've originally scoped 8 for phase 1. But like I mentioned, we have a large expansion plan. The hope is to take the model that we create here in Northern Illinois and make a Southern Illinois hub about 300 miles from here. And then, so on and so forth around the country to create a network of hubs. But there's definitely a lot of momentum around building up establishing these innovation hubs, working out best practices, and groups that might have innovations or resources or equipment that they think that could be valuable to any of the number of companies that could potentially be on site or that I've already mentioned, would be welcomed. So yeah, we're trying to make it all work, and it's going to take an army. So
it's an incubator.
At scale, yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. One thing, I think because we're so close to the industry, sometimes I get lost on the misconceptions that still stand when it comes to hempcrete and other hemp-based products. I mean, just the other day, I was talking to a colleague at this table about hempcrete, and his first reaction was, "Well, what is it, a straw house?" And I'm like, "Are you joking?" How do you deal with, do you see that as well, like these common misconceptions? And one thing I was curious about is, does something like a hempcrete need a rebrand just because of those long existing sort of stereotypes?
It's funny you should say that, because we have a project that is accompanying the hub, and sort of taking the model we built with the Hempcrete House. We're launching, it's almost like a marketing and education play. It's called growyourownhouse.com. And Grow Your Own House is going to be televised at some point. We have marketed it to a few different groups. I was really blessed to win a pitch competition at College of DuPage, where I sort of talked about the idea. You could see it on my LinkedIn, where I won this competition with the concept. And basically, we're going to be trying to provide a televised and like just clips of families. So we're going to pick socially and economically disadvantaged families to do the televised portion of it, but people could buy homes as well. It's meant to be a sales funnel. And so in essence, we're taking the value. And so almost like a car dealership or like a car website. Do you want leather seats? Do you want tinted windows? What color? Blah, blah, blah. So as you're picking these things, it's showing you the value and the impact on the community, as well as price point for when you're building out these different established templates. So we're going to have a few different pre-made architectural designs, and then we'll have like a build to suit or build to spec. And so basically the whole show is based around trying to break that stigma and focus in on like the goodness of hemp and hemp beyond smoking it. No, you're not going to smoke this. And the common misconception is that the industry is so early that these things are a far off dream, but people have been working on this for a long time now. And so a lot of the certifications have already been achieved. So a big milestone was when the ICC incorporated hempcrete into the building codes. Well, that took like 3 years from the time of approval to insertion. And it took like 3 years to get it approved. So at this point, there's already like the spray hempcrete installation has already gone through like ASTM, like fire resistance tests. It's already being used. There's large grants that have already there was a big grant for the city of New York to create dividing walls between units and older buildings. And it's winning all kinds of awards because it's a performance material. So I think what's changing is the industry has kind of gotten fed up with hearing that the infrastructure doesn't exist and the product's just not there yet. And so just this past year, I went to Philadelphia for the Green Build Conference, where basically the entire industry, like a bunch of the major industry stakeholders, all sort of had one booth. I'm so grateful for IND and the goodness of hemp for sort of making a lot of that happen, where everybody came together in one centralized spot. And I believe we were the talk of the town. As far as major green construction goes, the big groups know what we have going on. They see how much lighter, stronger, and just there's so many aspects of the product that make it a performance material for one reason or another. And there are so many different types of materials that are available utilizing industrial hemp as a bio-based composite or additive. And like there's no denying when paver bricks weigh a third of the weight, what the impact on the environment, construction costs, gas costs, their bottom line, what that would mean for them. So I think things are moving at like lightning speed at this point. And those who don't know will know, because once the big players jump in, they'll find out real quick that they need to adapt because they can't not, right?
No, I think I agree with you. You had mentioned earlier that you're sitting in on policy meetings. What are some of the policy meetings that you've been sitting in on, and things that you think are moving in the positive direction, and things that, you know, are maybe lagging behind?
So I think, so right now, the last policy meeting, I mean, it's a big one. Everyone might have heard of the NOCO conference in Colorado. Actually, when we had the Growcast event, I had literally flown back from Colorado to get there that day. And we were holding, there was a Kif Cure after party, like a conference after party that we were throwing in Colorado and Estes Park at the same time. But before I had left, I had the pleasure of being a moderator, and Morris allowed me to really help to sit in a lot of these meetings, introduce some of these people that were speaking on some awesome things that they're working on. A lot of it is policy based right now. So the big thing is right now, the cannabinoid space is dominating the discussion. Policymakers don't know how to sort of pivot off of that topic. And so right now, the main goal is to sort of, the industrial hemp folks are trying to separate from the cannabinoid hemp folks. All of the major organizations have seemed to put out some sort of a statement about what side they are standing on. And meanwhile, the big talk of the town is that big beverage is really interested in taking on hemp beverages. So we have a new player in the game. We all knew it was coming for the last many years. I kind of said, like, why is this like a dog eat dog world with all of these cannabis and hemp people coming after each other when the real threat hasn't showed up in the game yet? And so, like, we should all be working together. And this was sort of my stance before. Well, the big players are about to step in. Big tobacco, big liquor, they're showing up now. Like, we're seeing hemp beverages at Binny's. It's happening. And so, ultimately, one of my concerns and one of the concerns that are mentioned is if policymakers aren't careful about the language for which they use when drafting, when they draft language, and if they use food and beverage products incorrectly, what's the impact on hemp grain? What is the impact on, because like, I think it was a wonderful thing. I heard somebody say this, but like, why is the Farm Bill creating all of the policy work for cannabinoids when the Farm Bill doesn't have anything to do with alcohol? Like, the corn business doesn't, the Farm Bill and everything, all the language is about corn and growing, and farmers about growing corn. What you turn that product into is typically another body. But because policymakers have sort of dropped the ball on really taking what President Trump put into motion with the Farm Bill originally, the FDA, the USDA, and all of these different states have not been working together to create a landscape for these groups to be properly regulated. And so in this chaos of not regulating, it's creating, like, all we really need, and everybody in the hemp industry seems to feel like, yes, we should age gate this. Like, why are policymakers not age gating it? Because it seems like the Miller Amendment and a number of other all the states are saying, oh, the children, well, age gate it. Like, who said don't age gate it? Please age gate it. Can somebody age gate it? Like, I don't understand. We can card for everything else. Why is this so challenging when everyone seems to agree? So I think that's kind of like the big, like, overwhelming question is, when everybody agrees, why is that not happening? And how do we all come together? That seems to be like the new thing. It's like, how are we going to come together? But now we have this inner industry challenge going on, which I'm facing in Illinois as well, where the Miller Amendment came out of Illinois, which is creating havoc for the whole industry. And it's like, it's not even being grown in Illinois, because I've been basically growing, our company's been growing like 98% of the hemp here. So it's coming in from other states or other countries. And it seems like there are logical, easy solutions to tackle the challenges we're facing without demolishing an entire industry and allowing for innovation to take place. I try not to use pharmaceuticals, but it's just my background, as a way to create like concepts, but and analogies. But when I'm going into policymakers' offices, like, we talk about synthetic, and people use this derogatory term about cannabinoids, like they're synthetic or they're psychoactive, or and sometimes it's said in a derogatory term, but and then they say, like, it's made in all of these unethical ways. It's like bathtub stuff, and it's so crazy, because at this point the industry has evolved, and if you're somebody who's doing that, you've been washed out by now. It's challenging enough to operate like a legitimate facility with financial backers that would never contribute to somebody who's doing stuff that is so unethical. Not to say there aren't people like that in the world, but I would say the overwhelming majority of people who are in the space today, maybe not years ago when it was a cash grab, but in the market today, you're not doing it because you're getting super duper rich, because the amount of regulation, the amount of risk, you're doing it because you're passionate, or you're trying to help somebody, or someone with cancer that you're trying to keep up, doing it for them and you see all the good you've done in the world. Most people are doing it for really the right reasons. And if you're showing up to these meetings and you're actually registering and applying for licenses, then you're not the bathtub guy. So I'll kind of park that thought and move back to the fact that, okay, if we are going to go ahead and regulate cannabinoids separately, then we have to look at it the same way we're treating other products, in the same way that, because it's how you make supplements naturally. And there was like a lot of supplements use the same extraction technology, use the same methodology behind it. And like we use this synthetic term, but in the case of medicine, for pharmaceutical drugs, we can use the same technology and we can have synthetic products, for instance, insulin, and some of those synthetic products can create like life-saving impact. So insulin is a big product I focus on because it saves many, many lives, and not everybody can use the natural one that's derived from pigs. So lots of people or other animals. So there's allergic reactions with a lot of those. So most people use a synthetic form of insulin. And to move a product from a position of being newly going in and doing innovation and research and development, and it's just sort of breaking out of this prohibited time period, this prohibition, we're really inhibiting science, and we could be stunting medical breakthroughs that could be life-saving measures because people are just like afraid to research further. So, I mean, I have a lot of personal opinions about the cannabinoid space, but as far as like our key focus right now, we're very focused on industrial hemp for food and fiber and building materials, things like that.
What are those personal opinions about the cannabinoid space?
I mean, I think I kind of alluded to it a minute ago. I think that there should be room to research it. If they're saying these things haven't been tested, then there should be groups that should be able to apply to do that research, and it shouldn't be banned or outlawed. It should just be, there should just be some level of, okay, if you apply and if you're a qualified candidate to do some kind of research, then you should go through the same process that somebody would if they were going to research anything. But if you ban it and it has got this, if there's policy bans around it, then it'll stunt the ability to have these breakthroughs. So maybe it's a partnership with universities, maybe it's partnerships with companies that have been successful in this space, or groups that have done certain things, or I don't know, but I have a lot of ideas about ways that could be done responsibly to allow the companies that have invested so much money and time and energy into building cannabinoid companies and into these so-called synthetic, analog products, which analog products are used all the time in food coloring and all of these things we're seeing on the news right now that's in our food every day, and we don't know the impact on those either. So it's okay in some instances, but it's not okay in others. And I think everybody should play by the same rules, and this shouldn't be treated like a different plant. It should be the same as all products that are plant derived and extracted. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Well, do you find that the academic community has been more open to research into this side of the industry?
100%. We've had great relationships with academia, and they're doing some awesome research. They're doing amazing work. But I find that even some of their grants, policy affects them too. So they're not this. I've come to really detach like a previous notion that I had that universities were like not subject to a lot of the same things that regular traditional companies are. They also follow a lot of the same, like any of this gossip that's going on in policy, it converts in their ability to get grant funds and grant funding. So it's not just businesses, but there is a lot of research. I think the academic community is all about it. The universities are one of the key reasons I think we're moving forward, is because they got excited and they've found so much that it's hard to put the cat back in the bag. Surely they could try, but I'm so grateful for the academic community and the universities that have already put in so much time and have had so many breakthroughs, because they give credibility to the rest of us. So,
it seems like the new administration is trying to cut out a lot of the regulatory red tape, or as they say. Do you think there is a faster path forward in terms of, making some real changes, or is it mostly smoke and mirrors?
So I'm extremely optimistic. At the NOCO conference, there were a few highly respected attorneys and policymakers. That there was a few speeches and panels where many people sort of flirted with the idea that they have insider knowledge and that something very good for our industry is happening very soon. I think the big push is to separate industrial hemp and treat it differently, as it was kind of outlined in the Farm Bill, the proposed Farm Bill language before. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with what was proposed, but there was a lot of conversation around it. So I don't want to misspeak, but I also believe in manifesting. So I've been wrong. I've said numerous times, I think it's around the corner. I've never felt so confident that it is. And I believe that in the next 60 to 90 days, there will be a lot of clarity. I feel like there's a priority list for the new administration. But if I had to peg my head on something, what industrial hemp is doing for adding a new row crop behind, corn beans, if we can rotate in hemp, what does that mean for healthier food systems? And how does this blend perfectly with the MAHA movement and trying to make America healthier again, create local manufacturing, bring local jobs, bring a new row crop to add for new economic stability in farm and rural communities, which is his core base, right? And meanwhile, being able to take a lot of those raw materials and this product's so useful, it's got so many uses, 50,000 uses I've heard, to be able to go ahead and rebuild urban communities with rural products, to be able to add in a healthy plant protein that has all of the amino acids necessary for life, to provide a crop that's got a super deep taproot that can reinvigorate topsoil that's depleting at an astounding rate. Just the amount of benefit. It's hard when you look at the facts. If I don't say the word hemp, which oftentimes when I'm in certain meetings, I don't lead with that. I say a bio-based composite, and it does all these things. I have a food product that could be grown large scale, low labor, and I go into all the details about it, and people are like, wow, that's awesome. What is it? And I'm like, hemp. And they're like, oh. So it's kind of like shifting that. And I believe this new administration, if they provide support for this, I have a good feeling, and I've met a few people on the transition team that believe strongly that good things are headed for the industry at large. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. I'm optimistic.
No, that's very encouraging. And it's good to talk to somebody that's optimistic right now. It's, it's just good on the soul. Well, before we get out of here, I wanted to ask just a little bit, because you're so involved with the agricultural community. And for me, growing up in an agricultural community, that's when I realized that hemp was gaining a lot of traction, as some of the people in my hometown, the farmers, were just like, well, what do you know about hemp? And I'm like, whoa, if you're asking, that means we're really close. Like, how What has been the response? Like, has the agricultural community embraced it? And, not just in Illinois, but do you have a sense for the entire U.S.?
I think that I have a good pulse on a lot of different areas. I have some great relationships in different states. I'm pretty active in a number of associations. So I mean, right now we're offering higher returns than corn and soybeans. I think that what's happening with the tariffs and geopolitically is lending to our favor right now. Also, the corn and bean market, farmers, particularly in Illinois, have not been breaking even for a number of years now. So, and then also there's like becoming a transition where I'm almost like more successful with the grandparents and the kids. It's the people that are the middle-aged folks, the middle-aged farmer who's in his like 60s, 50s, and 60s. That's where I find the most challenge, because the younger folks have learned about, and I don't want to use certain terms, I want to be careful about the terms I use, but they've learned about sustainability and the impact of their actions on topsoil and things like this. And they've learned about herbicides and pesticides not being good. A lot of farmers that I know that are conventional farmers only feed their families organic, but they'll spray it out in their fields. And I think it's because they're clued into the fact that maybe this isn't healthy, and they wear masks when they're driving and spraying it, and whatever. And then coupled with the market being pretty bad for corn and beans for the past many years. Over the summer, we saw corn at $3.86, which is the worst that it's ever been since like 2009. So it's like I watch the markets and what's happening, and really in our area, for farmers to break even, they need to be making at least $5 a bushel to $5.25 in this area, because we have high land costs. But like generally speaking, in Illinois, probably in other areas, about $5, which it's like 450, 460 right now, and it just came through. There's been a rally recently, so it's like at a high, and people are like excited about that. I'm like, but aren't you still not breaking even? So with industrial hemp, we are providing competitive and a higher return than corn and beans. We do have legally binding contracts. We do need the product. We have orders that exceed what we've been able to produce. So if you know of farmers that are looking to get involved, we do require crop insurance. So dependent on the number, we require a minimum of 20 acres for our contract, just so that we can get crop insurance on the plot, and that's the minimum requirement for crop insurance. So we've really provided a lot of, I guess, senses of security for the farmer, other insurance policies aside from getting crop insurance. We do have orders that are legitimate. We are working with big groups. We are holding educational workshops. And if you're within a certain proximity of here, of our NIHH Maple Park location, we do provide turnkey farm solutions. So if you have land and you just want us to do everything, we can do everything. Kind of, for the most part, within about a 50-mile radius of here, we pretty much are willing to go out your way and basically do everything. And we're creating these little hubs or pockets. So in central Illinois, near Champaign, we have a little pocket there. And then in southern Illinois, near Springfield, we have another little pocket. So if there are groups of farmers, to have one farmer, if he's a smaller farmer that wants to do 20 acres and he's like 100 miles away from me, it doesn't make sense. But if he can find a group in his community where there's enough acreage to where you can have dedicated grain bins, that's what we would need to sort of stand it up. So I think, giving farmers a realistic understanding, inviting them out to our harvest days, seeing how we are physically doing it with standard farm equipment, a regular combine, We need a regular grain bin. You need a sorghum filter for the bin, because that's about the same size. It's about the same size as the seed. And we can provide all the resources. We're partnered with A&P Grain Systems that can dial in the grain bin, provide all of the education, or build one for you if you needed a dedicated one. We basically have everything necessary to allow a farm community to come together and say, hey, we want to be a little centralized aggregation center where we can allow this to take place. There's enough in an area to hit go in a particular area,
Well, Kelly, I really appreciate you taking the time. And I mean, just a fraction of what you're doing is truly inspiring, and really everything that you're getting done is truly incredible. So thank you for all your work. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it.
Before we get out of here, is there anything else that you want to make sure the Cannabis Equipment News audience either knows about yourself or your work at any of your enterprises?
Yes. We are having our hemp building workshop on June 26th and 27th, where we are going to be finishing up that building, and we'll also be doing mixing and molding and creating like a small farm stand to show people about how to do step one of the process. We are having a harvest open house that the date is still yet to be determined, but that'll be in August around the same time. Hopefully it'll coincide nicely with we're going to do our first Northern Illinois Hemp Summit. We will have various universities speaking and presenting, and we will have policymakers, lobbyists. We'll be inviting universities and students. So it should be a really good time to kind of get a better understanding on innovation happening at the universities within the industrial sectors, and then sort of the overall place where the Northern Illinois Hemp Hub will be located, see plants in full size, and maybe, just maybe, harvest will happen at the same time, and we'll be able to showcase, harvesting at scale, hundreds of acres.
Well, it's very cool, and I hope I get to come and check out any of those events, really. I mean, you're so close. There's no good reason not to.
Yeah, absolutely. I invite you to come out. We'll also be hosting lots of events here at Emerald Acres. So here at any point in time, we have a list of events that are going on constantly. We have a Mother's Day brunch going on. We're going to be doing like different themed dinners. The last Friday of every month, we do karaoke night, which is free. Just different farmers markets. So local farmers that want to sell their produce. If you want to register for one of the markets that we have, we'd love that. So yeah, trying to make it happen in the community, welcoming everybody to come out.
Well, I think you're doing a terrific job. And thank you again, Kelly, for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thanks, David.
All right. Before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you could reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You could also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. For Kelly Burke, CEO of Emerald Acres and COO of Kif Cure, I'm David Manti. This is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast, and we will see you next week.
Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.